Hello and welcome. Tonight on the show, if you were to put us three in a hamburger bun, you would have a Manwich. Come join us as we invite Joe, and we have Sloppy Joe, not only in Del Grosso format, but our friends over at Manwich too. We are so excited to have you. This is Sauce Spoken.
And we're back. We are Sauce Spoken, with a podcast detailing your favorite sauces, dips, and condiments. My name's Adam, and I'll be your host. And I'm joined here this week by my co-host, Tori.
Ooh, that sounds almost like a limerick.
Okay.
You know, just a little bit of prose for you here.
Yes.
Some pros putting on some pros for you. And little old me, I'm Tori. For those of you who don't know, of course, I'm a co-host here at Sauce Spoken, and I love every second of it. And to my right, the patron saint of spoiled food in your fridge, our co-host and friend, E.
Hello, guys. It's great to be on the show. E. coli. Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate.
If you were a supervillain, that would be your name. You would cause gastrointestinal distress
To the point of death.
Citywide.
His name would be E. coli should. Yeah, like I should
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. It's fucking
We
funny,
got
Eric.
there. Hilarious.
E. coli should do that.
Did I tell you guys about the hot dog buns out of my fridge?
Ooh,
I
no.
think so. The ones that were moldy.
The ones that are moldy,
Yeah.
like solidly moldy through. It was so bad.
I'm going to do you a massive kind gesture that I know will make your day, and I'm going to leave the rest of the tasting articles here tonight with you.
That's awesome.
Make your day.
There's a lot of food you brought.
That way you'll have the energy to go and fight with Verizon tomorrow.
I sincerely hope it all goes smoothly.
And now it's time to catch up with the host.
Time to catch up.
I honked like a goose. There. I'll be curious to hear what that sounds like.
We were just talking about this, Eric, and you say things that sound normal on the surface until you start digging under the surface, and then you realize that pure lunacy that goes on beneath it.
Pure lunacy, yes.
And so I said, you had said earlier, I have to help my sister and my dad with something tomorrow, so I might be kind of late to game night. Okay, fine, whatever. Tori inquired as to what specifically you were doing. You said, well...
Silly me. There I go.
I have to go to Sellers Ridge. I have to go deal with Verizon tomorrow. And I'm thinking like, oh, God, they messed something up. Your bill's totally wrong. You know, you have to go there and argue. Your phone's broken.
I have been overpaying by $15 for like the last 8 months.
Who knows what's going on? Something bizarre, you know. And you said, oh, we need to add my sister to this line. You know, we need to add a line for my sister to our account. And I expected there to be more to that. And you're just like, that's it. You just need to add your sister to this account. Now, you're saying that, like, your dad is the account holder. You are authorized to make changes on the account. And you want to add your sister to this account. And you're saying that you're claiming that all three of you and the Verizon rep, at least one Verizon rep, need to all be involved in this decision physically somewhere at a store. And I'm telling you, like, you can do this with one person over the phone.
You should go and get like arbitration.
Well, it definitely helps if I'm there at the store, and it has to be a Verizon, you know, like an authorized, not just a Verizon authorized retailer. It has to be like the Verizon store, which is actually far and few between each other, surprisingly.
It really doesn't. All you need to do is they will send your deal. You're trying to get a deal from Verizon you're trying to get a free phone and some money back, and they set you up with some deal, and for whatever reason you didn't pull the trigger when you had the deal in hand. Obviously,
right.
You talked directly to someone and printed out the paper.
Right.
You didn't take that deal, even though it seemed like an obviously good deal and was what you wanted. Instead, you decided to wait until now the deal may have changed, and now you're going to go argue out the deal that you don't even know has changed, but you suspect it may have. When you could have just pulled the trigger at the time.
And I have no idea how they're going to close one account and merge it into a new line and keep the same number, which I know there's a way to do it. The guy said the guy at the store at the time said it's very tricky. He said it's very difficult.
They do this every day, Eric.
Well,
it's very difficult.
That's what the Verizon guy told me. I just go with what the rep says.
It's going to be like a super tense, like James Bond movie.
Yeah.
Everyone watching the clock.
One person's handing off the cash, the other person's handing off their old phone with the number they want on it.
Right.
Like
E and his sister are on two sides of the room turning keys at the same time.
Pretty much.
You have the good, the bad.
Go in
the ugly,
expecting the worst, and then when it actually goes semi-smoothly, you can be happy about it.
This is not something that needs to take up the greater part of your Friday night. This is
Mission Impossible.
This is a 20-minute transaction on the phone without going anywhere. But you like you said yourself, you're going to overcomplicate
love to make things complicated. That's
for no reason.
He has entered the Verizon store. I repeat, the Eagle has landed.
The original phone has landed
at the Verizon store.
Jesus Christ, Derek. What else has you got going on with your week?
This past week was really busy. It was good. Let's see. I was in Ohio last weekend. I left work early on Friday. What did I do Friday? I guess I just left work early so I could go home. And it was raining cats and dogs. I was slipping and sliding all over the damn highway, hydroplaning left and right.
If you didn't use your gas pedal like an on-off switch, that wouldn't be a problem. It has moderation in between. You're allowed to use.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
You just don't have to floor it and whip it,
And then, let's see. So I made it to Ohio, and then I went out to a birthday party in Toledo. That was fun. That was a good time. Came back, and then on Sunday, I was working with my dad on building some raised garden beds. So, yeah.
Wow.
It was a good time. And then Monday, I actually got to relax a little bit. Tuesday, I had game night. Wednesday, what did I do Wednesday? Oh, yeah, I went out and hung out with Colleen. So, yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mowed her lawn for her, and then she proceeded to try and take me out to dinner, which was a whole nother fiasco.
What do you mean? Didn't work?
Which, the dinner?
Yeah, she couldn't take you out to dinner?
She said, hey, let's go. Where do you want to go? I said, I don't care, wherever. I'm easy. Literally, I'm like the most easygoing person. She's like, all right, well, I remember
everything
this.
with you is simple and simple and non-complex. There's never any weird constraints, no bizarre
She's
things.
Like, I remember this place when I was in college. I really, really liked back when I lived with, an ex-boyfriend of hers. And she apparently lived in Dormont, and this place was in Mount Lebanon. So we drive all the way from way north of the city to way south, back to actually where I live, basically, past more south than where I live, to try and hit up this place called the Saloon, which we walk into and it says, seat yourself. Great. She knows the way. She wants to go up to the top. They have like a top,
patio.
A bar patio. Thank you. Yeah, on the rooftop there. So we get up there, totally packed. There's a Pens game on. No seating. Okay, we'll have to sit down on the first floor. Go back downstairs. There's still no seating. We're getting totally ignored by everyone. She's so put out. I'm like, well, it just is what it is. It's, a Pens game. It's packed. We're obviously not going to get service. And it's already, at that time, it was like 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, we really could use like any food. Like, I don't care. We can go to Wendy's. No, we're not going to Wendy's. Okay, so we ended up going to Duke's, which was also packed. And because everyone was watching the Pens game. So, and the Pens game is a hockey game for our listeners who have no idea who the Pittsburgh Penguins are.
Put that together. At least it's a sports event of some sort.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was fun. We got dinner at 9:30 at night. The kitchen closed at 10.
Nice.
No, kitchen closed at 9.
Perfect.
But basically, we got it served, after hours practically.
Great.
Watched the end of the Penn game. That was cool. We lost, which was not cool. But it was fun. Fun time. Super late. Didn't get home until midnight-ish.
Very cool. I actually went over to help Colleen the other day. I helped her get her lawnmowers to run, which is how you're able to mow her lawn.
It was. Thank you.
It was weird because normally it takes me about a little over 20 minutes to get to Colleen's house, but they had a bridge closed. I got stuck in some traffic for a while. It ended up taking closer to an hour and a fucking half to get to Colleen's house.
Me too. I left work and it took me basically 90 minutes to get there.
The fucking worst. A nightmare. Got the shit kind of frustrating. I'm trying to think about it. I want to tell this funny story about Colleen, but I also don't want to pick on her live on the air without her being here to defend herself. But
I'm shocked. When has that ever stopped you before?
She's not here to defend herself. I talk shit about people. You talk shit about
other people, like AK and anyone else. It seems like fair game. AK. Okay. Sure, Adam.
I don't know. I poke fun at him.
Be the upstanding man you always think you are.
Have I ever said that? Have I ever said that? No. Piece of shit. Mr. The pinnacle of
I'm not
morality over
morality
here.
At all. Nope. Okay.
Colleen's an odd duck too sometimes. That's all I'll say.
Nice.
Tori, how was your week this week?
It was all right. We had good Red Robin sandwiches.
Red Robin.
Yeah, and I had a yum.
Yum, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the beer was most definitely on the yum side of things. And yeah, the sandwich, of course, the royal with the egg on it. You can't lose.
That was good.
And it hit the spot. It was a good pick. And
it was you, me, and Big A.
That's right.
We all went out, just the three of us, no Eric. The poor bartender was running an entire section of tables as well as the bar.
Yeah, she was.
And no one was helping her up, like keeping up on glasses and shit, so she was very flustered, but she did take good care of us. So I fucking stiffed her. I said, find another job, there's a tip. No, I didn't say that. Obviously, we all tip well, damn it. But
We're good tippers.
She kept on us. We got a lot of fry refills. We got some good burgers. We got some beer. Good time.
Yeah, I would say so.
Anything else, Tor?
Yeah, that about wraps it up.
Cool. Well, we were talking a lot about this week about what the men in the show here were doing, so I think that's going to lead us nicely into another man we're going to be talking about tonight, whose name is Joe. Sloppy Joe, to be specific.
Not Joe Mama.
Not Joe Mama. And on the subject of man, the first sauce we're going to be trying this week is Manwich Original Sloppy Joe Sauce. And the other one is a brand that we've mentioned before on the show, but we have yet to try any of their creations. So this is going to be the first one for us, and this is the fabled Del Grosso, the finest sauce made.
Ooh.
Sloppy Joe sauce. Sweet and tangy.
Ooh.
So without further ado, I'm going to pass each of these containers off to one of you guys. Since I brought these sauces, you guys can do the descriptions on them. So Tori, I think I'll give you the Del Grosso. Here you are.
Okay.
Eric, you can take the Manwich. And we've been trying to do a little bit. We've done a lot of similar sauces before in the past. So I was trying to branch out a little bit when I found these in the grocery store, a John Eagle to be specific.
Mm.
And at first I thought, because I was just cruising through the aisles looking to see what we haven't touched yet. And I'm thinking like, okay, here's we've got Sloppy Joe sauce. We haven't done that yet, which is interesting, and we'll talk about later, because Sloppy Joe sauce is not something we've done yet, but it is also quite similar to other things that we have done. And the Manwich, to me, is like the normal one that most people would go with, but I also saw this Del Grosso, which, not to spoil it for the listeners, but it looks a little different, so I thought we'd try that to compare and contrast. But without any further ado, Eric, do you want to lead us off with Manwich, the original Sloppy Joe sauce, please, and give us a little bit of visual description of the outside of the container that we're looking at here tonight?
It's been a while since we've had such a nice, elegant, fancy container like this. Not since the days of Rico's.
That's
it's a
true.
can.
The days of Rico's.
It's a can. It's a tin can. Your normal average size, about the size of a Pepsi.
12 ounces.
12 ounces. Pepsi or Coke, it's pretty well universal. People understand that size.
Universal.
Let's see. It says Manwich. It's real dark brown labeling, but
it's got umber, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely an umber.
Absolutely
a
umber.
Burnt sienna.
Ooh. Could be a burnt sienna too. Burnt sienna's a little bit more orangey, I feel like. Maybe I could be wrong though. I've been wrong in the past. I think I was wrong last time.
Take hard stances, please. Please.
Nope. Not
feed
doing that.
into my system.
Yeah, really. So Manwich is in big, bold, white text, and then it has original Sloppy Joe sauce in like a orangey yellow, kind of like a really pale orange, I guess. And it says just add meat. Has a picture of a nice big sesame seed bun full of Manwich Sloppy Joe. It tells you your calories and things like that. Easy steps on the back. It's a can.
It's not hard to prepare. I mean, for the listeners, to spoil the tasting articles, I made up a pound of ground beef, or as our friends in the UK, Ali and Marv would call it, mince. We sauteed up a pound of mince. Basically, I threw it in 2 different containers. We got to Eric's house. I threw the sauce in. I mixed it in, and I put it on the cheapest possible buns you can get from Giant Eagle. It was like $1.50 for a pack of buns, hamburger buns specifically. And that was our tasting article for this evening. But with all that, and it's just that easy. But with all that being said, Tori, go ahead and hit us with a visual description for the Del Grosso.
Sure. Yeah, what I have here in front of me, that if you didn't know better, if you cover up some of the words on this here label, it looks like a darn jar of spaghetti sauce. Just the jar size itself. The jar size being, of course, this color contrast is killing me. 14 ounces. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't know better or was looking, let's say, at the back of the label, it looks like a jar of spaghetti sauce, complete with its black lid, with that dimple that makes the noise that we like, that click.
But it's small though. You know, normally the spaghetti cans are like 28 ounces.
Is that so?
Yeah,
okay.
like a quart. This is like half that size.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they come in this small size too. They come in a varying sizes.
Come in 14 ounces.
Sure.
This is your mission. Find me a pasta sauce that comes in a 14-ounce can, Eric.
Sure, it'll be easy to do, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
I'll do that. I'll photograph it at my local shopping center.
We have the SSC, the Soft Spoken Challenge.
Yes,
right?
please.
So, yeah, we have a label that wraps all the way around this here glass jar. And I have to say, I think the color scheme is a bit weird. Right off the top, there's a black band, and then this black band turns into a yellow checkerboard. It says the finest sauce made, as you mentioned.
Unequivocally.
Of course, no, by all means. There's a DG and a shield, which is very flowy and has all these... you know what I mean, and you'll know what I'm seeing. And there's a word for these types of flowy designs. It says Del Grosso,
like a fleur-de-lis type thing.
Yeah, along those lines. Yeah, and then of course there's tomatoes. The vast majority of the label is this bright OSHA orange, which is just bizarre. And then it finishes off down at of course, there's a picture of Sloppy Joe and a big banner label Sloppy Joe sauce. But underneath that, it finishes with the same black and gold checkerboard. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's weird. It doesn't scream over the top American, which I think a Sloppy Joe pretty much is. It doesn't scream Italian, which of course Del Grosso would certainly.
I don't know if it's. I assume it's Del Grosso, not Del Grosso or Del, something like that.
You got me. I have no idea. Yeah,
it could be Grosso. I don't know.
Yeah. We got a little blurb on the side here. Since 1914, we have maintained the passion and quality that continue today in the Del Grosso tradition of great taste. Del Grosso sauces are made with the finest ingredients and cooked very slowly to create our authentic recipes. Del Grosso Foods remains the oldest major family-owned producer of pasta sauce in America. So Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Del Grosso in a glass 14-ounce very rare jar size, by the way, 14-ounce jar of Sloppy Joe sauce.
I have $5 that says Eric does not find another pasta sauce that comes in a glass jar that is 14 ounces.
Take your bets now, gentlemen. We got 5 down.
I'm not betting money.
$5.
Stupid.
Because you're going to lose. And I've historically been correct.
You have been historically correct.
So, yeah, and the one thing I want to say is, I'm going to call this Del Grosso because historically in my mind, that's the way I've always said it. I think it probably is Del Grosso, just because I feel like you wouldn't want to name your food Grosso,
Yeah.
Right.
But I really, truly have no idea. So we'll call it both ways and really mix it up for the listeners throughout the show. I like calling it Del Grosso because I've talked a lot of shit about this before on the show. We haven't tried it yet, but I know I've said that they make some really, truly bargain basement cheap pasta sauces. And there are some others I think that are worse, but I think this is one I was pointing out as being distinctly worse than a Newman's Own. So that's my take on it. We'll find out tonight whether that holds up in the context of Sloppy Joe sauce. But Those are my preconceived notions. Now, I have to ask this. Before we get into this, I want to know your guys' history with Sloppy Joes. I'm assuming that you guys have all had Sloppy Joes, as I have, right?
Numerous times.
Sure.
Okay. A staple from your childhood, I presume?
Of course.
No, I wouldn't say a staple, but we had it on occasion.
What would you typically have on a Sloppy Joe? You put cheese on there? You put pickles on?
Cheese, of course.
Cheese, okay.
Just plain. No cheese, no pickles, though I have done...
Lettuce or anything?
Pickles, nope.
Yeah. Tomato, no?
Nope.
Okay. I've never had one with cheese on it. Yeah, and I know that is a thing people do. I'm not opposed to that. I personally don't really feel like it needs it. I was wondering if you guys have... I like pickles on mine, personally.
Interesting.
I'm a big fan of pickles on it. I like the tangy bite and the crunch that comes with it.
Interesting.
An otherwise textureless meat hunk of sandwich.
That was a college thing, I think. I probably had a roommate or somebody who said, actually, I think it was one of my ex-girlfriends. They said, put pickles on it. Okay, sure. And I was like, hey, that's pretty tasty.
Good. Yeah. Now, here's another question. Have you guys ever heard of the concept of a loose meat sandwich?
No.
I guess not, no.
I think this is a Midwestern thing, and I forget, I think this is I think Roseanne, the actress who played Roseanne, has her own loose meat restaurant now or something like that.
Okay.
It's a terrible sounding.
Sounds vile.
Get that in the show notes.
I don't want to eat Roseanne's loose meat. I will say that in a heartbeat.
Rhyme time. You made a rhyme time. Boy.
I want nothing to do with her loose meat.
I don't want to eat that loose meat in a heartbeat.
But essentially, my understanding is that a loose meat sandwich is basically like a sloppy Joe with no sauce.
No sauce.
Yeah, like sometimes there may be like some peppers and onions in there. There may be some cheese on top. Maybe there's some pickles. There could be like lettuce or some shit.
I feel like that would just fall apart.
It does. That's why they call it loose meat.
That'd just be a disaster trying to like...
It's a messy sandwich. Which I like it from a conceptual basis. I hate the name. I don't like thinking of Roseanne when I eat food. And that being said, I would, in fact, try one. But I think this is a thing that you get like... And I say Midwest. I don't even mean like Ohio Midwest. I mean like Minnesota Midwest. So that's my take on it. I've never had it. I'm interested, but I think that they are related food items. That's all I'll say about that.
Interesting. I don't know.
Except they're missing the best part, the sauce.
Good point.
Which, getting to the sauce, let's move on to the visual description of the sauce itself. Eric, do you want to lead us off with the Manwich appearance there? The sauce inside the tin?
Okay, sure. It's gotta look inside the tin here to see and try and angle it towards the light.
Pour some on your plate, you savage. There you go. Attaboy.
And it looks so different. Looks so different from the what was in the can. What I was gonna say was the can looked like a dark barbecue almost, but when I pour it on the plate, it looks much more, I don't know, red and like more like a pasta sauce. Slightly darker. Has clearly visible flecks of like pepper in there. Pretty homogeneous though.
I have some chunks in mine.
Okay.
There are chunks in it
to be had, apparently.
I believe like tomato.
Oh, well, actually, yeah, I suppose I could have looked inside the bowl where everything was mixed in with the meat.
It's harder to tell with the meat mixed in, though, if there's chunks in it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's how I was trying to get on the plate to see what type of texture it had.
Do you have any chunk in yours, Tor? They're not a lot of chunks.
Very little.
Yeah, they're like very like loosely distributed chunks, but there are some chunks in the Manwich.
There's a big one right there for you.
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't like the chunks. And this is another thing I wanted to kind of touch on. Like, did your guys' families, when they made Sloppy Joes, did you guys use the quintessential, like, Manwich? Or did your mothers, like, whip it up on their own recipe?
I've had both. I've had a homemade recipe, and I've had the Manwich out of the can. I've never tried the Del Grosso, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm with E on this one. Almost exactly the same. Had homemade Johnnies and had the can jobs.
My can jobs. Give me a can job.
Yeah.
How much for a can job? Jesus. And for me, kind of the same. Like, I've had both. We've used the Manwich sometimes. My mom's made her own, and quite often she started with a can of Manwich, and to kind of dress it out a little bit, she's amped it up with some of her own ingredients,
which is worth doing.
I think that is like, whenever I make Sloppy Joes, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that it needs it, and after tasting it here tonight, I don't know. I'll save this for a tasting notes, but I do have one thought on that. What about you, Tori? What does your sauce look like? The Del Grosso concoction you've got there.
I sort of have to disagree with E because I think this Del Grosso thing looks more like pasta sauce than what the Manwich does. I think it has it was certainly more of a tomato puree even. Or maybe not as pureed as finely as the Manwich. There's certainly a noticeable ripple to the surface of this. I think a lot like a pasta sauce would look. I don't like this sauce, and I didn't like the sauce when I was looking at it and the meat because it almost looks greasy. I think if you were to view this, I think that it almost looks a little bit greasy, even as it's on the plate here, and it moves, it leaves like a snail trail.
Sheen,
yeah, which I know it's not. But
there's probably oil in it.
Okay.
I am willing to bet part of what you're seeing there is in fact oil, which goes in.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if I've talked about this before, but like when you're making a pasta sauce, you can blend up like a tomato, like a boiled tomato, and what you'll end up with is like a dense tomato chunk and like the tomato water on the top. Nothing actually, it's just like loose, weird, strained tomato paste. The thing that actually holds it together in that emulsion is olive oil. As soon as you add that oil and stir it, instantly emulsifies and turns into a pasta sauce. If you don't have that, it's just this weird, watery tomato goop.
Ew.
So I suspect what you're seeing there is in fact oil.
Ain't that some shit? Okay. But yeah, so I mean, at first glance, I wouldn't know any better if it was a pasta sauce or not, because it is very, very similar, at least in appearance, to pasta sauce. It has similar shingling to how you would see in a pasta sauce jar as it clings to the side. Those patches, of course, that we're seeing, of course, very, very prevalent in ketchup also, if you're having a hard time envisioning that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a stretch for our friends at Del Grosso to call this a Sloppy Joe sauce, because I'm going to get into the tasting notes here, but I think it's a pasta sauce.
Without showing my hand too much, I'm inclined to agree with you. And the only thing I'll say about that is I think like the definition of like a Sloppy Joe is pretty loose, much like the meat sandwiches.
Yeah, for sure.
Much like the meat sandwiches, it's pretty loose. And I will say, like, the Manwich is much more pureed, like a ketchup, versus the Del Grosso, which is, like you said, it's got the clearly definable, like, tomato chunk in the small pureed type, as well as some larger chunks in there, and a more prevalent larger chunk than the Manwich, I think is fair to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I definitely think you said it spot on. Like, it is, to a T, it looks like pasta sauce. With all that being said, that's going to lead us directly into the tasting notes. And since we already touched on that subject, Tori, do you want to go ahead and lead us off with we'll do the Del Grosso first. Go ahead and lead us off with that and give us your tasting notes.
Sure. I can tell you what I think this tastes like, and I think this is something that resonates with probably damn near everybody. And if you were to take a can of SpaghettiOs and separate the O's from the sauce...
Yeah.
I think that's what you would have. I mean, I don't a lot of times say things are too sweet for me, but for this particular application, this is far too sweet. I think an engineer at Del Grosso, a cook, whatever, tripped and fell when he had a handful of sugar, dumped it in, and he's like, oh shit, what now? So he tries it, and the light bulb turns on, and my man says, this is going to be a Sloppy Joe sauce. So they turn something into nothing. They canned this, and then here we are talking about it. But yeah, I mean, it was really sweet. It was, it's not too good. It lives up to its name. I didn't think it was visually appealing, especially compared to the Manwich side to side. I've never had the opportunity to look at two side by side like this, so that was sort of a nice experience in and of itself. Sometimes when I'm eating Sloppy Joes, you usually got one turned on. You have a couple beers in you, you're maybe not paying as close attention.
Right.
Sure.
So to look at it analytically is good, but yeah, the Del Grosso was not good. It was too sweet. It was weird. I don't know. Just the texture thing, looking at it, the oil thing, that's just not my bag, dude. Not good. But yeah, it's SpaghettiOs spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
It's actually sweeter, I think.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. It is definitely, I will say, sweeter than SpaghettiOs are, and it has a lot of the same flavor notes. I do think that it's actually a little bit bolder than like SpaghettiOs sauces, and obviously it's got more of it seems like something that's made from more actual real ingredients. Like it clearly has like some tomato actually in it.
It has more heft to it. The sauce in general has more body than
as opposed to the pureed Chef Boyardee products. Yeah. And for me, I was actually surprised. I picked this one because I knew that the color and appearance were contrast greatly from the Manwich, and I wanted to get something aside from what I considered to be the traditional gold standard for Sloppy Joe sauce. And I definitely think this is it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, while I agree that it is much more akin to a pasta sauce, and it is a little sweet for my personal liking, I think that I actually kind of like it. There's a bit of a complexity of flavor that, on first glance doesn't quite pop out, but I noticed it had a distinct tang on the sandwich. And one thing I wanted to say that I think differentiates primarily between like a ketchup product and a Sloppy Joe product is the inclusion of like pepper flavoring. Not necessarily hot pepper, but more like a bell pepper flavoring. And I think that part of that sweetness is like a bell pepper sweetness almost. One thing I noticed is this to me tastes like they have included almost like the juice or like a pureed form of like a mild banana pepper in it.
Huh.
And it has got that sweetness, and then I get that mild banana pepper taste, and I definitely, the tomato is underneath all of these flavors, obviously, so read that in too. But in addition to that, I think I actually got a little hint of like a smokiness on the back end, and I also got, I thought it was a pretty heavy hand of garlic. I don't know what quite to make of this. I'm a little bit torn because, like I said, I do think it's a little bit sweet. I think I would actually like to throw this on some stuff. Maybe like I don't know, I'm thinking like a pizza Bob sandwich. If you ever had one of those, like a sandwich that's like a grilled provolone with some usually pepperoni on it, and you do it like a grilled cheese, and you'll throw like a pasta sauce on there.
What's that called?
A pizza bomb? I don't know. We had them in high school.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of it either.
You're hitting me with all this shit. Pizza bobs and loose meats. And what the hell are you talking about?
I used to go hard on pizza bobs. I know, like, back when I was in high school, they would do up a whole batch of grilled cheese and or pizza bobs, and then whatever they didn't sell, the next day they'd wrap them in foil and they'd sell them off for like 25 cents a pop. And as a chunky high school kid, I used to go ham on those sandwiches. I used to what the hell? I'll beg my friend William, who I've mentioned previously on the show, I'll beg him for $1. He'll give me $1. I'll go get 4 grilled cheese or 4 pizza bob sandwich, in addition to the lunch I already ate, mind you.
Pizza bob, as in like Pizza Robert?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in addition to the 3 or 4 dinners I would have later that night. But of course, I would hammer on those crusty, dry, cheapest possible production. Oh, they're so good. And I could still hammer down on those, especially the pizza bobs, because a little bit of moisture from the sauce really helped them the next day after they've been warming up for like 3 to 4 hours, in a warming tray. I think that this sauce would actually be effective on something like shitty like that.
I really get these like visuals of you just like throwing elbows and shit, like right after like the bell rings for like your lunch, and you just like, you were that guy who was like sprinting down the hallways trying to get the pizza bobs before they sold out. Yeah, the pizza bobs are the primos. It was always nice if I could get like two pizza bobs and 2 grilled cheese for the contrast. I've always been a variety man. It's one thing that's important to know about me.
Wow. Your poor buddy William, you're bleeding his ass dry.
Oh yeah. I probably owe him still thousands of dollars. So, but anyways, it's a complex sauce. It's surprisingly tangy. It's got some good characteristics. It's bizarre, and it's not what I traditionally think of as sloppy Joe, and it's really too sweet to be used on like a pasta. That would be sickening if you used it in something that was like a pasta that has kind of a bland thing on its own. At least the meat is like enough of a contrast with the savory to the sweetness. I wish they'd tone the sweetness down a little bit, but otherwise I think this is actually an interesting take on some sort of sauce. So, what about you, Eric?
I agree more with you, Adam. I think the sauce is like really sweet ketchup, and I think it has a depth to it. Like you said, like the bell peppers, and I even get like maybe onion. I didn't really pick up on garlic per se or banana peppers, but I did think that there was a nice robustness to it, even though it was very sweet. But yeah, I kind of like it. So, but everything you guys were saying was pretty much right on point. So,
all right,
not a lot to add.
Well, let's do a little reverse here, and let's start off with you then for the Manwich. Eric, why don't you give us your initial tasting thoughts on that? So
my initial tasting thoughts were when I was trying it on the Sloppy Joe itself, right? And
right.
I, maybe to a detriment to myself here, I actually tried the Del Grosso first, and then tried the Manwich sandwich, Sloppy Joe. I couldn't really taste it. Probably because of how sweet the Del Grosso was, it really knocked out the ability to taste the Manwich, which is shocking because I grew up on Manwich. Like, it's not grew up on it, but whatever. It's the one that I have had before. So, and I like it. I really wasn't until you convinced me to pour out a little bit more on my plate here to when I was doing the description of what the sauce looked like that I actually tried it again, and it settled long enough that I was able to. Yeah, it still has a really good tangy, barbecuey. It has complexity to it. I don't think it's as deep or as maybe complex as the Del Grosso. I think it's like it has more notes of barbecue though, and more like, I don't know, somehow it was more even. It's not so sickly sweet, so it doesn't punch the way that the Del Grosso does. It a little bit more mellow, I guess.
Yeah, I think that the Manwich has a little bit of sweetness on its own, not nearly as much as the Del Grosso. And I do think they rely much more on like a vinegary, tangy bite. Like I said, it's much more pureed, and I think that might actually be partially to its detriment too. I think one of the benefits that the Del Grosso has going for it is kind of like harkens back to when we talked about the cheap, shitty dollar store Italian dressing, your favorite sauce on the planet, Eric.
Yes.
And the fact that had those tender little vittles in it that you could kind of chew on and get little bursts of flavor, and I think that like you almost get more tang from the Del Grosso because it's got something you can get your teeth into a little bit, I think that maybe it's like holding that flavor in reserve, because I do agree that on a Sloppy Joe with the meat, the Manwich on its own does get a little bit washed out.
Yep, that's what I found.
But it definitely relies more on like that ketchup-y, pureed type taste. It's kind of almost got like a barbecue sauce notes to it without the sweetness, but like kind of that earthier flavor. Definitely got some pepper, like I said, more like a ground up bell pepper to me. heavy on the seasonings. I think definitely, so it seems like more of a vinegar kick. And the only thing I'll say about that is that this is a little strange for me. It does taste washed out. Part of that is I know that when my mom would make it, when I make it, I always amp the flavor up with some other stuff. So I'm used to having it have a bit more kick to it with that Manwich base. But the only other thing I will say is that Manwich has already accounted for this problem. This is good for children, I think. They're trying to make this widespread appeal with their original, but they also sell, for the same price, you can buy a bold variety.
Oh, interesting.
Which has very similar flavors, but at a much higher intensity. So if you wanted a more intense, robust sandwich with some, bursting more flavor, go with the bold. They've got you covered either way. It's the same price.
Okay.
So I think that, you have a hard time knocking them for that. They cornered the market. I didn't want to try that because I thought this would be a more direct comparison to the Del Grosso, but there you have it. Tori, what'd you think?
I'll be darned. Well, I got to add some points on for the geniuses at the Manwich Science Labs pushing back the boundaries of culinary science every day. So good on them. Wow, with the bold selection, that's incredible. But yeah, I'm certainly inclined to agree with you guys to a degree. Yeah, I think your descriptions are spot on. I thought the vinegar was the most prominent thing in Manwich to boot. Of course, the spices were there, but yeah, I mean, for me, the vinegar hung around. I just took a schleck of my plate. The whole plate, no utensils necessary. It was like a dog. And, and that's what I came up with. I came up with the vinegar. It hung out for a long, long time. So if I were to put it on something, I'd say ketchup with more vinegar and somehow a more intense vinegar flavor. I don't know how they achieve that. More vinegar per vinegar, as we like to say around here, or, whatever.
Almost like a brown sauce was mixed in there, huh?
Maybe. I don't know. And maybe that's a credit to its barbecue sauce nature, or maybe the foundations of barbecue sauce, maybe a little bit more vinegary than your average ketchup. But I would be thrilled to try the Manwich Bold version.
For sure.
For what it's worth, I will say this. I have had the bold version, and I like to generally consider myself a pretty bold person, and I think that you guys will both agree with that statement.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I didn't care as much for the bold version. I actually prefer to get the original Manwich.
Huh.
And it's been a long enough time that I can't exactly tell you why, but I do recall that I prefer starting with the original Manwich and amping up on my own.
So what is your favorite things to amp it up, as you say?
Yeah, right.
I will almost always add some ketchup. I found that ketchup actually works as a good ingredient in a lot of different things that you might not suspect. That's actually one of my secret ingredients, even seemingly obvious as it is. It adds a lot of good body and depth to things otherwise that you wouldn't think to add it to. On top of that, I'll usually add a little dash of brown sugar. You gotta add a little bit of yellow mustard. Sometimes I'll add some barbecue sauce if I feel like it. I almost always add some Worcestershire sauce. Maybe a little dash of soy sauce. I don't know. Let's see whatever else I've got going on. Maybe some black pepper.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna put what's that Chipotle sauce you like? Yeah, Chipotle sauce.
Oh, the Chipotle Tabasco?
Yeah.
No, I don't usually add that, although I think I have added some smoked paprika before.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's usually what does it for me. What about you guys? Do you have any input on that at all, or any similar additions?
I like putting in more vegetables. I like cutting up an actual...
I will put onion in sometimes.
Yeah, onion and pepper, like a
expecting.
red bell pepper. Put those in there. Let it simmer with the meat.
Yes, I have done that too.
I've also put kidney beans in there, just because I'm like a chili.
Yeah, so I think kidney beans are weird on a sandwich.
Yeah.
You're pushing the bounds for
Yeah,
me.
at that point, you are kind of like making chili.
Then I don't mind a chili sandwich.
I don't need beans in my sandwich. I like beans.
Chili sandwich.
I love beans and I love farting, but I am not going to say that I want beans in my sandwich. But since we got on this topic, I want to take a little pause for a moment, and I want to go on to the Wikipedia page for Sloppy Joe, which thankfully exists, as I just discovered. And this is something that just occurred to me, but I'm like, before we give this an adjudication, before we get on to the ratings portion of the show, which we have a little way to go still, I want to find out what a Sloppy Joe is and what it's supposed to be. Because I don't know. You know what I mean? And that's what kind of ties in earlier. Like, have we tried something like this before? Have we not? Do we even know? And I don't think we do. So I'm going to read what it says here. The first line on Wikipedia. A Sloppy Joe is a sandwich consisting of ground beef, onion, tomato sauce or ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and other seasonings, served on a hamburger bun. The dish originated in the United States during the early 20th century. which makes perfect sense. They show a serving suggestion there with a side of coleslaw, which seems, appropriate. They suggest serving temperature is hot. I think that's a given. But other than that, I don't know. You guys see anything else interesting?
I like how they gave the calories, the food energy on Sloppy Joe's.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's just kind of an approximation.
They narrowed that down to the calorie.
Another thing that kind of stood out to me here that I want to read to you guys. It says that mid-20th century American cookbooks offer plenty of Sloppy Joe recipes, although they go by different names, which we've already kind of. Some of these are kind of interesting. Why don't you read some of these names for us there, Tor?
Toasted deviled hamburgers. We got chopped meat sandwiches, Spanish hamburgers, hamburger a la Creole, beef marienton, and a minced beef Spanish style.
I wonder why the obsession with the Spanish thing, considering the fact that this is a distinctly American thing, as we noted.
And not only just American, but it also says at the top that the sandwich originated in New Jersey. So that's really,
okay.
Not a Texas kind of thing.
No. It does say here, Marilyn Brown, director of Consumer Test Kitchen at H.J. Heinz in Pittsburgh, says their research at the Carnegie Library suggests that the Sloppy Joe's origins lie with the loose meat sandwiches sold in Sioux City, Iowa in the 1930s and were a creation of a cook named Joe.
How about that?
Fascinating that we brought up the loose meat sandwiches and now
Sioux City.
I didn't know there was that direct of a connection. So, I mean, it does seem like this has kind of the same connotations as, like if you get meatloaf from a restaurant, there's the, kind of the insinuation that maybe you're eating leftovers, ground up stuff. And I think that's kind of seems like the same thing as like the Wendy's chili and also this. It's like, hey, whatever steaks or hamburgers, we didn't make the cut. They're now today's Sloppy Joe. That seems to be the insinuations on here, but
that's interesting. There it says several variations of Sloppy Joe exist, North America, Quebec, Canada, but it's usually served on a hot dog bun, not a hamburger bun.
And you know what? Truly, I think it may actually work better on a hot dog bun.
Absolutely,
because it holds it more like a pocket rather than. I clicked on this tavern sandwich, which is also called a loose meat sandwich, and it says here. I just want to give for the listeners, and I'm not just going off the wall here. It says a sandwich consisting of ground beef on a bun mixed with sautéed onions, sometimes topped with pickles, ketchup, mustard, and cheese.
Like so, I said, it's just
cooked
meat,
fucking loose. It's like a cheeseburger but loose. Roseanne! Hey, it says in the Wikipedia, later episodes of the sitcom Roseanne. So
the Lanford Lunchbox. There you go.
Yeah, a real life restaurant, the Canteen Lunch Alley in Ottumwa, Iowa. So yeah, Roseanne's loose meat.
Oh, that's from the show. I don't think she does in real life, dude.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm trying to read from an angle here. Yeah. You would, blah, 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 blah. Would you say the Lanford Lunchbox?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Elton?
In the fictional town of Lanford, Illinois.
All right. So, interesting, though. We definitely nailed it on that. So that's interesting. But before we go any further, I want to touch on the manufacturer websites here just briefly. And I know we're on to the Del Grosso here, which, their website is kind of a strange mix of colors and textures. It looks like something that came out of like the late 90s for website design. They offer no additional literature to go along with their Sloppy Joe sauce.
12 14-ounce jars.
Yeah, I guess
$15.
You order.
Wow. Does that sound right?
That can't be right. It must be like...
That's dirt cheap.
Maybe it is. Because to be honest, this is only like $1.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's probably correct. 12 14-ounce jars for $15. Story.
You can get 12 16-ounce jars of their hot salsa for $19. That's a steal of a deal, too.
They've got pasta sauces. We don't need to read all of them.
Dude, you can buy lots of Del Grosso sauce.
Yeah, apparently. You could open up a Del Grosso... You can open up a Del Grosso distribution center for... probably $250.
Tipton, Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll give them a little bit of a... What is it? Sauce Factory Drive? That's fucking funny. That's what we gotta get our own Sauce Factory Drive. We gotta get a P.O. box on there. That's awesome. Yeah, so Tipton, Pennsylvania. That's interesting, and I did not know that. So this is a local brand, so now we need to be nice to them.
That's right.
This is in stark contrast to the Manwich website, which explodes with color, vibrant off the page. It doesn't offer you much other literature either, but it's a much more modern website. They do give you some recipes for a Sloppy Joe taco. And another thing I've made before is the Sloppy Joe stuffed peppers, stuffed bell peppers, which is an interesting one.
Wait, there's a sauce called that? Or wait, what is Sloppy Joe stuffed?
The dish, right?
You make stuffed peppers with Sloppy Joe meat inside, dipshit.
Huh. Never heard of it. That sounds interesting. All right.
It does say on here, Manwich, it says that you may also like the bourbon barbecue flavor.
That sounds good.
The thick and chunky flavor. You know what I mean? And bold, as we previously discussed. Oh, dear God. They've got the Sloppy Joe story.
I had those growing up. Those little biscuit, like, with Sloppy Joe meat in the middle and cheese top. Those are super good.
Just imagine this is a stuffed pepper.
Yes, I understood now what you were saying, but I missed what you first said.
Okay,
in one ear out the other. You know me.
All right, I want you guys to. We'll take turns. We'll see how silly this is. We'll take turns reading this. I'm not going to preview the whole thing. It looks long. So Tori, we'll start with you, and we'll switch every section.
Sure.
So, Tori, go ahead.
A celebration of the Sloppy Joe. There are lots of people named Joe. Let's celebrate the Joe we all know and love, the Sloppy Joe.
Eric.
A deconstruction of the Sloppy Joe. It's always been this simple. Bun, Manwich, ground beef, bun. Adam.
Is this me? Okay, did you know the Australian version of the Sloppy Joe, I'm having trouble reading.
Oh, yeah, is called a
savory mince roll and is served in a pita pocket.
Now that seems like a good idea, too.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea, is right.
In the movie, 1995 movie, It Takes Two, Ashley Olsen's character tries her first Sloppy Joe, which she calls a big gooey messy burger, which is accurate.
Very accurate. A restaurant in Las Vegas serves a catfish-style Sloppy Joe.
Oh,
that sounds...
Hook me up with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I would try that.
I would try that in a heartbeat. A Washington, D.C. steakhouse once served a $24 Sloppy Joe named after Vice President Joe Biden.
I wonder why... The cost? Do you think it was just the size or something?
Maybe it was like ground filet or something. Like, that'd be so wasteful.
Washington, D.C. is expensive.
I would say Joe Biden is known for a lot of things, but... but is sloppiness one of them? Is he a sloppy guy? He seems pretty tightly wound to me, I guess. I don't know. Hard to say. Whatever. Not a show about politics. Hold on, Manwich is more than a sandwich. The Sloppy Joe gets creative. Sloppy Joe stuffed baked potatoes. Eric can finally spice up his boring, sad baked potatoes.
Sounds good to me.
Sloppy Joseph's. Sloppy Joe jalopy, which...
Not sure what the hell they're doing.
I'm not sure. It looks like a half a baguette with... cucumber wheels and a cucumber steering wheel, and then hot dogs sliced up like the axles for the wheels and little cherry tomato headlights.
Yep.
This is clearly a children's food. Although I would think you would want to remove the toothpicks prior to serving for the children.
That's right.
King's Hawaiian Supersize Sloppy Joe, which always got coleslaw on it. Coleslaw on a Sloppy Joe, I think, would be good.
That would be good.
Sure. Yep. That would be
Sloppy Joe's tacos we talked about earlier. Okay, this goes on.
No bell pepper version here, but that must be an Adam original.
What now?
It's a no stuffed bell pepper version.
Yeah, I didn't say it was on their fucking website, dipshit. I didn't say that's where I got it from. I'm saying that is a thing that you can do.
Gotcha.
Dipshit.
So it does say that the name for Sloppy Joe may vary depending on where you live. Hit number one, Tori.
Barbecues, upper Midwest and southeastern Pennsylvania.
Sloppy Jane's, central Minnesota.
I always believe those to be ground turkey instead of ground beef.
Yeah, I've had those too, which I also like. Dynamite's, northern Rhode Island.
Some folks out in eastern Colorado call them juicy burgers.
And apparently in southeastern Wisconsin,
Sheboygan, Wisconsin,
they have them as hot tamales, which sounds so wrong because that is not what a hot tamale is in my mind.
In southern Illinois and in the St. Louis area, they call them yip yips.
Yip yips, and right next door in Nebraska, they call them yum yums.
And in northeastern Pennsylvania, that's where we are after all, they call them wimpies. That's weird.
We're not in northeastern Pennsylvania.
You dingus.
Southwestern Pennsylvania.
Southwestern. Oh, yeah, we are.
Jesus Christ, Eric. Northeastern is the exact opposite corner. You're from northeastern Ohio.
Right.
God damn it, Eric. And then finally, tavern sandwiches, as we mentioned, in Iowa, and slush burgers in upper Midwest and North Dakota.
Bunch of silly names for a sandwich.
A lot of very strange names. So now, with all that being said, it's time for Eric's favorite segment of the show, the ingredients.
Shit, yeah, I forgot we even had that still to do. I thought we were just going to jump right into our
I was having so much fun learning.
Oh, so much fun. All right, so on the Manwich here, we have ingredients consist of tomato puree and high fructose corn syrup and distilled vinegar, corn syrup, and then less than 2% of salt, vinegar, carrot fiber, dried green and red bell peppers, chili pepper, gargum, spices, xanthan gum,
bang bang,
dried garlic, natural
bang.
Flavors, very delayed bang for Tori, citric acid. That rounds that out. All right.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it all tracks. Sounds very much like what you would expect. And then for the Del Grosso, we have tomato puree as well, followed by brown sugar, then apple cider vinegar. And then it contains 2% or less of cayenne pepper, celery, chili powder.
Celery?
Which has chili powder.
You don't have to read the sub-ingredients. We've said this before.
There it is. I'm trying to find the other end of the sub-ingredients. Okay, onions, green peppers, garlic, ground beef. That's weird.
What?
Has ground beef in it. Modified food starch, mustard, olive oil,
hold on,
ground
this is
pork,
canned
salt,
meat,
turmeric, and spices. So there is more depth to this. How about that? That's crazy.
There's meat in there.
Would you like to read it yourself, Adam?
No, it's
that's weird.
Concerning to me because I don't see any meat. It certainly doesn't have the appearance of having meat in it.
Gives you that depth of flavor, I guess.
I find that alarming.
It's weird because all I really tasted was the shocking sweetness to it, but that's not true. I mean, I said it had depth. The second ingredient
was like brown sugar, though, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, what's interesting is that it doesn't have cornstarch, or not cornstarch, high fructose corn syrup like I would expect it to be, and then the Manwich that's the second ingredient.
Huh.
High fructose corn syrup.
That's interesting. That was actually quite revealing to me. Honestly, this has been a very interesting episode to me from an educational standpoint, because a lot of the times I think we come to this with a lot of already kind of preconceived understanding, and I think that a lot of this Sloppy Joe here seems so quintessential and just culturally American that we kind of take it for granted.
For sure. When
it seems like there's a lot of depth behind the scenes that none of the three of us were really aware of. So I find that quite interesting. But now that we're coming at this from a somewhat more educated standpoint, we found out the ingredients, and we've tasted them, and we've tried them in two formats, both on their own and on a sandwich. I think it's time for us to get on to the ratings portion of the show. Let's start off with the traditional Manwich, because I think that's going to be more standard across the board for us. Eric, would you like to lead us off?
Easy. 5.5. It's ketchup with a little bit of more-ish.
I think I'm exactly in line with you. I'm going to be a 5.5, and here's why. You could throw ketchup on a thing like this, and it would also be good, with no further ingredients. And I think this is just like ketchup with an extra little step, maybe like a half step. I think that's right. Yeah, 5.5.
Wow.
Tori, what about you?
Oh boy, wow, you made a case really strongly, and everything you said made a whole hell of a lot of sense. Ain't no 10. There is no question about that. No 10. I feel like a cop-out. I feel like this is copycats, but I have to go 6. I mean, I have to go at least some degree of different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than ketchup. We've all said that, to some degree, you can add ketchup to this. So, I mean, yeah, if you add ketchup to something, it comes out being a better product. It can't be a 5, but it's certainly no higher than a step above that. I mean, yeah, there's really no...
Right.
It's weird, and we know we've talked about this before, both on and off the air, where our rating system is almost kind of problematic because ketchup is a 10 to a lot of people, and it's a lot of people is a 0. So the fact that we use it as a 5 as our perfect middle can be sometimes troubling, and I think in an application like this where it already exceeds, giving it a 5 or a 5.5 is not an insult, like it might be to some sauces. I think this is fair to say that this is good, even though a 5.5 is not a stellar rating.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
That's kind of like what we came in with. 5 is average. 5 is not amazing. 5 is not bad. It's just average, and that's what this is. This is the gold standard, but it's also an average standard. Let's move on to something that's a little bit deviated from the gold standard, and we'll talk about the Del Grosso. Tori, do you want to lead us off with that for your rating?
Oh boy, I wasn't impressed from the first bite. Onward, I started to gain a little bit more sympathy from it in the seemingly lovingly ways that you guys went about describing it. And of course, being from Tipton, PA, I think they're on the other side of the state. I think they're one of the folks that may call it Wimpies,
Gotcha.
by virtue of Manwich's website. But despite all that, I mean, boy, I was coming in pretty solidly at like a 2.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and originally, and these things we were talking about, of course, them being good old PA boys, and these striking ways that you were talking about.
Bottom bargain pricing.
You can get 14 jars of this.
Make no mistake.
For $15. I mean, jeez, the price is right.
I think it was 12 14-ounce jars.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start at 2.
You can get over a gross of Del Grosso of ounces.
I'm glad, honest to goodness, I'm glad that I learned more about Del Grosso. I think I'll probably be more inclined to reach to them, despite the sloppy Joe sauce not being not too good, but just knowing they're PA boys and just knowing the quality, or maybe not the quality, but the price. The price is right. Cheap.
They were both cheap.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. They were both exceedingly cheap. I think the Manwich was maybe like 10 cents more.
Oh, wow. So it's it's gonna be bounced up from a 2 to a 3.5, and that's where it's gonna land, a 3.5.
Nice.
For me, this is interesting because, and I have to preface this a little bit because the rating is going to sound shocking, but it's a perfect 10. No, I'm just kidding.
I am shocked.
No, I actually think I came into this. My conception was that it looks weird. It looks too red. It looks like a pasta sauce. It looks like a pasta sauce on a plate. It looks like a pasta sauce when I mixed it in. It smelled like Parmesan cheese when I opened it, which we didn't really touch on the smell this much episode, but when I cracked the jar, it smelled like Parmesan fucking cheese. And the fact that it has meat in it, apparently, I find bizarre and alarming and also concerning. That being said, my rating for this is going to be a 6.5.
Whoa.
Better than the Manwich. And now, here's why I say that. It's too sweet. We've all agreed on that. That's
For
a known factor. They overdid it with the sweetness. If they sold something like this that was called 33% less fucking brown sugar, I would buy it in a heartbeat. It's different. I wouldn't necessarily advertise it as a sloppy Joe, but I'd advertise it as something. I think if you mix this with maybe like a hot sausage sandwich where you had something to contrast, it'd be pretty fucking good. Damn good on its own. And the other thing I would say is if you did want to make a sloppy Joe with this, because it's got more of that like tang and bold flavors in it, I think if you fleshed it out the same way you do with Manwich, I think you could make something better. You just have to put in enough stuff to kind of tone down that sweetness. So I think if you're looking at it from like you're going to alter both, I think that one actually may have more potential. The Manwich is much more of a blank canvas. That's my thoughts. What about you, Eric?
I don't want to be a copycat here, but that was my number when I said it was easy to label Manwich as 5.5 because I knew I was going with Del Grosso at 6.5. Because a little short story too about that. If I was given the choice between freshly made Manwich sloppy joes and day-old marinara meat sauce and a dry piece of toast, I'm going for that marinara with the dry piece of toast because I love making myself just a spaghetti meat sauce sandwich. I think it's more tasty in my mind. I just like it more than Manwich. I like it more than sloppy Joe.
Sandwich.
You like bread with your bread?
No, I don't think he puts spaghetti.
I'm not saying the noodles.
He's just saying the meat.
Just that meat.
Oh, okay.
Just that leftover meat sauce.
Kind of
like we keep it separate when we were growing up, where it's like, had the pasta on the stove and a saucepan full of sauce, and leftovers were refrigerated separately. And the next day, you get that marinara sauce with the meat that's just been sitting it for a day, marinating and getting all those flavors mixed up. Oh yeah, that's good. That's better in my mind than sloppy Joe.
That's just a meatball sub.
Yeah, essentially.
I think it's fair to say that's just a fucking meatball sub, without it being in a ball.
Without being in a ball form, absolutely.
Which I think makes it easier to bite, because my main gripe about meatball subs is that fucking you're gonna unhinge your jaw like a snake and try to get a whole bite of meatball. It's hard to chew off a chunk.
A loose meat meatball sandwich.
From the guy who's inhaled an entire foot long without barely chewing.
Yeah. Not wrong.
But yeah, so in my mind, 6.5 because it's really good. And I think what you said, Adam, there with some hot sausage in there would just be amazing. So.
Yeah, I think it would tone down the sweetness a little bit, and it'd make more sense with the kind of more marinara type flavors.
Sure.
I'm maintaining that the Del Grosso is a lower tier pasta sauce, and this is not a high tier sauce to begin. I mean, you're getting the price point. You know what you're getting.
And right on the jar itself, it says sweet and tangy. I'm sure Tori mentioned that, but it certainly rings true.
One of the first things I said about it, but yeah,
right.
Someone said it. I just don't listen, as we all know.
And it is, they're not lying. They're advertising correctly, I think. I kind of find that their like label is simultaneously strange, but I also kind of like it. It looks like cheap, like pizzeria
does
type aesthetic, which sometimes those places make banging pizza. So who's the judge? Who's the judge?
We are the judges. That's our job.
We are adjudicating. Yeah. This was an interesting episode. Educational. I think Eric strives to research. I know he always wants to know the details.
All the research was taken away from me, and I don't have anything to do for notes now. I can just verbatimly type in what Adam searched while we did the episode. So.
No. But I do think that like. I said before, you're allowed to research, but you're just not allowed to present it like you already knew that information inauthentically to the listeners. I said, if you do research, you have to say, I researched last week and I learned just last week, not, well, I think that people in northeastern Pennsylvania might call them wimpies, you know?
I've been there and I know because I live there in northeastern PA.
Because I live there. Yes. So, yeah, an interesting episode. Something I didn't have a whole lot of hope for going in, but actually it turned out to be kind of cool.
Kind of neat.
Yeah, I would say so. It was quite educational. Boy, you learn something here at Soft Spoken. You get smart. Keep listening to us.
I gotta be honest. For humor, I don't think this was one of our best episodes, but for like straight up like interesting facts and educational knowledge, this was probably one of the better ones.
Oh, I think things are humorous.
Well, anytime you're involved, things get weird. So.
That's right.
And I think that's going to do it for us with the Del Grosso and the Manwich Sloppy Joe sauces for this week. With all that being said, Eric,
my closing thoughts.
Do you have any
much as you love
dating advice? Dating advice with Eric.
No, I didn't have any last week, and I still don't have any dating advice this week. There's no dating advice.
Did you get a birthday sloppy toppy? Sloppy Joe? You get that Brazilian jerk we were talking about?
Oh. No, my birthday was a little bit of a chaotic mess, but at the end of the day, I had some good Thai food.
Did you get a smooch in?
No.
You get a hand holding in?
No.
You get like an amorous stare in or anything?
I don't think so. It was
amorous stare.
Damn. What are the closing thoughts you got for us?
It was a crash and burn on that front of dating advice, but
so don't do that. Be the example.
But just a closing thought in general, just be true to yourself. Be yourself.
You said that last week.
I did. I said be genuine.
Yeah,
be genuine.
Be authentic or something like that.
Be authentic.
You're being full of shit is what you're being. And now it's time for Touching Thoughts with Tori.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I want to tell you that we know that you have hard days. We all have hard days. I do. The guy sitting at this table do. If you're in your car and you look to your left or your right and you see a fella in that car, he probably has bad days too. So I think you should take a look around and acknowledge that those folks have bad days, and hopefully they will acknowledge that too and maybe be a little bit nicer and be a little bit easier on you. But the first step is acknowledging it. And that's it for me, man, and we love you, and I can't wait for next week.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. As always, if you guys like this episode and a little bit more educational content, make sure you stop over to softspoken.wordpress.com. That's where we host the show notes. You're free to stop over there, check stuff out. Eric does. Sometimes he puts some effort into finding some interesting facts.
Sometimes.
More similar to what we presented here tonight about some of the rest of the sauces we've tried. So, he puts some effort in.
Going with low expectations.
You
might be impressed.
Putting effort into things is a rarity for him. So,
sure.
Make it worth his while. Stop on over there or drop us a line on Softspoken Official on Instagram. Or as always, drop us a little line at softspoken@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to either answer you myself personally, the Adam may respond to you, or maybe I'll pass it off to one of my subordinates on the show. I'll get one of my, not you guys to be clear, one of my assistants, one of my many assistants.
Not you guys, to be clear.
I will have them answer it for you. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Oh no, it's the end of the show. Thank goodness there's several other episodes waiting just for you. Check out our Instagram. We like to have some fun over there. We post the sauce bottle pics if you're curious, and the occasional meme. That's going to be Sauce Spoken Official. Despite our humble nature, we are accepting donations, believe it or not. Look us up on PayPal. That's going to be at Sauce Spoken. Hey, and if you like what you hear, grease those palms, babe. Lastly, roll up your sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty at saucespoken.wordpress.com. We have show notes and details. Check it out. Share us with a family member or a friend. If you're enjoying it, I'm certain they will too. Good night.